The Syrian army says dozens of its soldiers have been killed by rebel forces who've captured the country's second largest city, Aleppo. It's the largest offensive against the Syrian government in years and has led to it withdrawing its troops from the city. The Islamist rebels have since made further advances on their fourth day of their lightning offensive and are now sweeping south towards Syria's fourth biggest city, Hama. Rebels celebrated in the streets of Aleppo. President Bashar al-Assad, who hasn't been seen in public since the offensive began, has promised to defeat the opposition fighters, describing them as terrorists. He said he would do so with help from his allies Russia and Iran. Greg Mackenzie has this report.
Smouldering buildings in Syria's second largest city, Aleppo, tells of an unpredictable new chapter. The city, once a symbol of resilience, is now reeling from a fresh wave of destruction following a series of Russian airstrikes. The escalation comes as Syrian forces withdrew their troops from the city. That retreat in response to a surprise offensive launched by rebel factions 5 days ago. This is the most serious challenge yet to President Bashar al-Assad in years. It was a carefully planned attack. The rebels stormed back into Aleppo for the first time since Assad's army forced them out at the height of the war in 2016, this time meeting almost no resistance.
I am the son of Aleppo. I returned to my city and my land and my home by the will of God, and we will not give up a single inch of the lands of Syria.
The rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, is listed as a terrorist organisation by the US and others. It controls most of the northwestern province of Idlib, the last remaining opposition stronghold after more than a decade of civil war. That war began in 2011, triggered by pro-democracy protests against Assad's rule. Russia intervened in 2015, turning the tide against the advancing rebels. The battle for Aleppo in 2016 was a crucial point. Syrian and Russian forces gained control after a grueling siege. 2020, the last major offensive when Syria and its Russian allies attacked Idlib. Now again, Russian warplanes are bombing Aleppo. The Syrian army says it has made a tactical retreat to prepare a counter-offensive. That is one reason the rebels were able to advance so quickly, reviving a simmering conflict at a time when the Middle East is in turmoil. As for the president, it's not clear where he is, but speaking yesterday from an undisclosed location, he vowed to defend Syria's stability and territorial integrity in the face of all terrorists and their backers. Greg Mackenzie, BBC News.
Our correspondent in Beirut, Lina Sinjab, has been giving us the latest on developments in Syria.
After Aleppo, they've moved further, south, reaching the outskirts of the city of Hama. Of course, the government is denying that they are taking control of parts of Hama as well. And President Assad has vowed to fight what he described as terrorists. But the situation also, both on the level of allies and internationally, is raising, concerns. The U.S. blamed the situation on Assad's reliance on both Russia and Iran, and said that also Assad have ignored calls for peace talks and peace treaty that were designed in 2015. The Russians also said that all parties like Iran and Turkey should find a solution to stabilize the situation. Iran's foreign minister is on the way to Damascus, so it's really raising a lot of alert both for the allies of President Assad and also on the regional level. But it seems the timing of this operation happened when President Assad's allies, Iran and Hezbollah, are weakened by Israeli airstrikes, and at a time where Turkey is also trying to push Assad into talks that he has been ignoring for years.
Tell us about the effect on ordinary people, because it's a conflict that's led to millions of people being displaced, millions having to leave the country. What's happening to ordinary people in amongst all this movement from the rebels and return of fire from the government?
Well, certainly everyone is really on high alert and concerned. Residents of Aleppo who had to flee are worried about what's going to happen next. They don't know if they are going to go back to Aleppo. Those who stayed in Aleppo are also wondering if the government is going to pound the city with airstrikes like what happened in 2016. People who are outside Syria are also speculating, is this going to be a game changer that will bring about a different deal in Syria and that they will be able to go back to the country? Lots of people are just watching cautiously these developments, but with little answers to what are the certain situations that's going to come along after this operation. It's hard to tell now if the rebels have the capacity to maintain control of Aleppo or Hama, and how the government is going to respond given all the talks and regional involvement, especially from allies like Russia and Iran. So we'll have to watch the coming hours and days to see how the situation is developing.
Lina Sinjab there. Earlier I spoke to Mina Al-Arabi, who's the editor-in-chief at Abu Dhabi's The National newspaper. She explained how important the reaction of key players such as Turkey and the US will be in the coming days.
There are a number of players that will affect how the outcome of the current fighting will be. The US, of course, is important not only because of its global role, but also the fact that there are 900 troops in Syria, in northeast Syria. And up until now, they haven't been a direct target, but only 5 days ago, airplanes conducted strikes against weapons storage units for Iranian-backed militias. So they're very much an active player in this. In addition, Turkey is the main backer of HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, that used to be, of course, previously affiliated with Qaeda. They went through a so-called rebrand, so to speak, to say that they are no longer close to Al-Qaeda, but they're very much Islamist militants. If the Turks and the Americans come together and decide how they want to support these rebel forces and what pressure to put on Bashar al-Assad's regime, it could be a major factor in change dynamic. However, if they step back and let this become more internal, it would be a different play. The Russians have a lot to lose here because they have been for some time wanting to be the main backers of Bashar al-Assad and really to limit Iran's influence in Syria. That's happened, one, through the attacks on Hezbollah that have happened in Lebanon, but also they have been able to play a bigger role, the Russians, politically. So what happens next will depend on a number of factors, but external players will be of major significance.
And what about Iran? You mentioned Russia wanting to be one of the backers. How about Iran, now that it's been weakened through Hezbollah in Lebanon? How much is that making a difference?
Iran's on the back foot when it comes to regional dynamics, especially with the attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, Iran remains a critical strategic ally for the Syrian regime. And there's reports of the Iranian foreign minister landing in Damascus today to show that they are still supporting the regime and that they're able to be an active supporter of Bashar al-Assad. They will want to save face where possible. They've taken several blows and they can't be seen as too weak inside of Syria. So they will want to also play a political role, not just in terms of backing militants.